We're going to go ahead and get started. So with the last slide that we were looking at, we had the understanding of our why and our how, the difference between a what, how, and why. So we're going to watch about 3-minute video, although the video is about 18 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but this is presented by Simon Sinek, and he is an author and a speaker and a leader basically in leadership and business development for organizations and the structure of an organization. So he's written a lot of books. His famous book is The Understanding of the Why, behind the what and the how. So he is doing a TED Talk, and we're going to start him at minute 2, where he's explaining the difference between those 3 things, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of a discussion. So Jen, go ahead and start it. I am not hearing it. Is everybody else hearing it? People are not hearing it for some reason.
Okay, how about now?
Now we can hear you, but we can't hear him.
Let me hit play and see if you can hear it.
Okay.
Act and communicate.
Now it's good.
Way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle.
Can you expand the screen, please?
Sure. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and figures and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered man flight was like the .com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing, the day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, that's an amazing discovery, guys, and I will improve upon your technology. But he didn't. He wasn't first. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. He quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe. Well, why is it important to attract those who believe what you believe? Something called the law of diffusion of innovation. And if you don't know the law, you definitely know the terminology. The first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are your early majority, your late majority, and your laggards. The only reason these people buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. We all sit at various places at various times on the scale, but what the law of diffusion of innovation tells us is that if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration, and then the system hits. And I love asking businesses, what's your conversion on new business? And they love to say, oh, it's about 10% proudly. Well, you can trip over 10% of the customers. We all have about 10% who just get it. That's how we describe them, right? That's like that gut feeling. Oh, they just get it. The problem is how do you find the ones that just get it before you're doing business with them versus the ones who don't get it. So it's
Jen, let's stop it right here.
That you have.
So you guys feel free to watch the rest of it. You can type in Simon Sinek and it will pull up the video on why. It's one of his most famous videos. And I also have the link in your additional resources included because it doesn't play obviously from here, but you can get it from the resources. So a couple of things that he went on to explain right after this is Martin Luther King Jr. And when he started the big speech that we all know, that I have a vision, and the vision is one day for white men and black men to live free and to live together. So that speech was inspired by his why, but 250,000 people showed up to join his why because his why represented their why. And the main thing about the why that Simon Sinek was talking about and discovering is that when our why matches the why of our partners, of the people that we inspire, then they will be with us, they will be loyal, and they will follow us. But we must be the great leaders that God is asking us to be, and to understand our why so that we can present it properly to everybody around us. So what is your why is the question. And that is something on top of you writing your vision and your mission with just a couple of words. I want you to write your why. For example, on my page, on the donate page, I didn't put the why right there. I think I had it on my Ceitci.org, but my whole why is generated from the way I was raised in Bulgaria and having at a young age, my sister passed away, and then seeing all of the orphans and children being sold into trafficking before trafficking was even a word. And I came up with the why that I want to read to you. And then tomorrow we can, in the morning when we open up for just a group discussion, I would love to hear some of your whys. We probably won't have time to read everybody's why, but here is how I started my why. I have always believed that unless my personal why I can make a difference outgrows the why of it can't be done, generated by the opinions of others, my heart will never be truly engaged to be united for a cause greater than myself, greater than life. The why I believe and the why I live so passionate is worth dying for the freedom of people from the slavery of dictatorship regimes and ability to truly engage all that they are becoming. A people driven by the right of choice, the freedom to be, the desire to love, and to effect positive change. My why was generated by living 16 years under communism oppression, by seeing most of my relatives and immediate family die in hospitals because no medical personnel cared enough to fight for the life of another human being, by seeing most of my relatives, by seeing orphans thrown into trash cans on the streets in third world countries, even in the ghettos of America, because they were inconvenienced. My why was generated by speaking with young girls caught in human trafficking because they became the victim of a sale driven by corruptive mindset in weak economically developed nations in Eastern Europe. My why, I stand up every week after week to speak in front of multitudes of people and raise funds for those who have no voice to speak for themselves, gives me the energy to fight a cause greater than my former past, deeper than my passion for living a comfortable life and to be rich, stronger than the fear of being rejected or not liked because of my sense of urgency. Humanity is crying for salvation, and I cannot ignore their cry. Christ has given us the answers. I have been chosen for such a time as this, and I will do whatever it takes to reach out and pull them out of slavery, out of darkness. After all, the soul of a person is of greater value than any riches in this world. So that is my why, and I'm not going to read it to every single person, but I wanted to have it for myself. And maybe sometimes you can write your why in just a couple of sentences and maybe in just 2 paragraphs, but I need you to write it out of your heart, out of your passion, rather than out of just a knowledge of what you do and how you're doing it. And then when that why connects with you, then you're able to connect with other people. So that is something that I want to open up here for a discussion, and then we're going to go on to the next slide after that. First of all, let's talk about, have you heard of Simon Sinek, and have you seen this video before? And if you have, is there something new that stuck out to you? And if you haven't, what is something that you weren't aware of until now? Feel free to unmute yourself and jump into the discussion.
This is Tanya, and I haven't seen that video, but I really liked it because I guess I just didn't realize how important to understand your why of why you're doing things. Because like when you do activities or for an organization, when you have certain services or a purpose that you're doing things, where it's so easy to talk about what you do and how you do it, but whenever you talk about why and what's behind it, I think it helps people just like connect more to it.
Absolutely. Just like he said, we connect through the limbic part of the brain, which is our emotion. If we can't pull the emotion of a person because of our why, just the rest of it, the logical part is not going to stick. Very good.
This is Brilliana. I think that for founders, it's so important because I think the why is real. I think in a lot of cases, the why is really why you feel like, hey, there's something that can be done. I think just deep down in your core, you have it. You just like, I know that there's something that can be done with this particular situation. I think it's important not to lose that in the process of trying to get it done. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me and my experience is that to make sure I think it's like you have to guard your why in a way, because the list can be very long And if you're not careful, discouragement would say, you can become discouraged. But I think when you guard your why and always just remember what is it that sparked in you in the beginning, start or to even make the first steps in order to accomplish what's really in your heart.
Yes. Yeah, because the what and the how are time consuming. How are we going to do it? What are we doing? What are we improving on? How are we improving on it? How are we getting everybody connected? And so all of those are details that involve time. And then the why, if it's not clear, can get convoluted in the middle of it. Very good. Anyone else?
It's Woody. And I think what I heard there was what this man said was, my why is important. I know that, but sometimes I don't communicate that. And sometimes I devalue the passion of my why. And so I think that was really excellent to show, that our soul is created for a why. The rest is detail.
We're created for connection. God created us for connection. And the what and the how doesn't connect, but the why connects us.
Yep. As Bishop says, with the purpose, dignity, and yeah, that's what we are.
Absolutely.
This is Stephanie. I have a question.
Sure.
Is it possible? Now, I know that our calling in life, our core calling, never really changes. It may take on different looks, or different, like, but my question is this. I think at this time in my life, my why is changing a little bit. Do you see that as possible? I mean, as you grow and you're more familiar with ministry, I mean, all these years that I've been involved in ministry, and I've seen it change, and yet I've seen myself grow. And so my why is, to be honest, now, as I'm older, it's quite a bit more mature. It's not so much as my why in the past as a young, insecure girl, kind of early time in my life. I needed affirmation, if you will, those kind of things. But of course, over time, that particular need is not as grandiose to me at all. It's like there's been pruning in my own life to where I can tell that the Lord wants the purity of that my why needs to be 100% an all-consuming, Lord, this is for you. This is for you. This is unto you. And I deal more now with stewardship because I feel like that is incredible. That's a very important thing because a lot of people can have gifts, but if we don't steward them properly, use them properly, get them out properly, we're responsible for that. But anyway, what do you think about that? I mean, as far as our why can change as we mature, as we get older. I don't need the things I needed in the early years. My heart has always been, though, moved with compassion for people, for people that are broken inside, physically healing, broken there, emotionally broken, mentally broken, if you will, just in the wrong thinking. What is your perception about that?
Okay. So I'll answer what I think, and then anybody can feel free to jump in and add. So I think we have to make a distinction between, when we say why, I think why is connected to purpose, where the what and the how is connected to the vision. and how we fulfill the purpose. So for me, I've always made a definition that my purpose is not going to change. If my purpose is to inspire people to live a life of freedom and of dignity and of value and of freedom, that's my purpose. But my vision in different stages of life may change of how I'm fulfilling my purpose. So our why has to be so much bigger than just our present moment, because that defines your purpose in life. And the vision is supportive to the why, and that will change with different stages of life. So when I was younger and people would tell me, well, I bet if you got married, you won't be able to fulfill your purpose anymore. And I'm like, no, because my purpose can still be fulfilled even if I am at home being married. So I am married now as of recently, and my purpose hasn't changed. Now, with the coronavirus and everything else, obviously I can't travel as much, but my purpose to be able to encourage people can still be seen every single day. I can do that from anywhere. So I think we have to define our why in a purpose type of a way rather than a situational why and a age defined why. Does that make sense? Stephanie?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. That's good.
Anybody else that wants to say maybe in a different way what you understand about it?
I'd like to weigh into that a little bit because I have some age, a perspective that I think I can relate. I believe that as we get older and at different stages of life, there are different stages as you go through life, that there is as Stephanie says, there's a maturing, a clarity, a deepening, an understanding, even understanding ourselves, knowing ourselves. That is continually changing. Everything about our relationship with God, our understanding of how He wants to work through us, who this package is, what He has to work with through us. So many of these things evolve. We can call it maturity, we can call it knowledge or insight, development, things we've learned, things we've gained. Life is a continual learning process. So we are changing. So I think the application of the why concept is that there will be always something that turns us on, that causes our heart to burn. There's something, whether we're old or young, know how to or not know how to, when we hear about it or we know someone is doing it, there's that something inside that leaps. There's a connection, something very deep. I think it's very spiritual. And so we need to stay flexible so that we're not so identified by what you might say the how and the what, but that we allow all of these aspects of why we're here, what we are to do, to become not only very alive, but flexible as the Lord deals with us. I think that the big thing that I'm getting out of this discussion, I wish every person, now we're talking ministry generally, but I wish every person understood that they have a why. No life is without a purpose. Every life is valuable. You know, someone that wakes up every morning and goes to a difficult job and works with muscle and sweat, comes home, feeds the family, seems so mundane, seems so purposeless. But with a spiritual perspective connected with God, every life has a why. And if people could know that, instead of just ordinary Christian, just relinquish that to the big guys, the people that have ministries, those that are ministry leaders, if they would take responsibility, Lord, what is my why? Why am I here? You put me here for a purpose. I want to know it. And in that knowing comes relationships, comes opportunity, comes the things that start putting flesh or success or achievement into focus. So I think it's a really good question. And if we let's say when you get old, I'm 73, I'm healthy, so I have lots of energy to do lots of things, but I'm at the stage now that I know I'm not going to be like that forever. One of these days, not too soon, things are going to change, but I fully expect every day of my breathing life that there will be a fire in me that keeps a smile on my face, a joy in my heart, and keeps every human encounter purposeful for the sake of God's work through me. So I have to be, I want to be very careful not to think if I start not being able to do certain things that I would start not having a why anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that would be my comment that might add some perspectives.
That does.
So good. Bishop, you're our example. We're gonna be like
I hear
you.
you.
Unless Jesus comes back before then, but when I'm 73, I'll be like you.
Yes, you will. Even better. Even better.
Through God's grace.
Amen. Can we talk a little bit about this last statement? This is Merliana.
Yeah.
Our why must be bigger than ourselves, because in light of what Bishop has said, and also our sister Stephanie asking, can change. And one of the things I really liked about what she said is that I believe that she was making an indication that your why can mature. And I think in terms of our why being much bigger than ourselves is a reflection of that maturity.
Right.
Because the word of God says that we're going from glory to glory. And so I think the why that is in us is innate. It is from our birth. But at the same time, I do think we mature. And I think a part of that maturity and that going from glory to glory is in the aspect of it's bigger than we are.
Mm.
And so that, and I think that keeps it from being, keep it in a faith perspective, helps us to keep from being so, fearful of what's in us. If I can make that kind of observation.
Yeah.
If I can add something there.
Is that Babette?
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
I loved what Bishop had to say about flexibility. And particularly if you've been in ministry for a very long time, I think sometimes we can get caught up in the cause. We can get caught up in the purposes and what drives us. And of course, we must always make Jesus the center of the core. And when we get caught up too much in the cause, we can tend to lose the focus, and that can be very dangerous because we become driven. But I think I love the flexibility terminology, because just when we think we're going one way, sometimes God throws us a curveball, and He'll take us another way and change our maybe methodology. The passion won't change. The desire to do God's work won't change, but sometimes we can get stubborn and not want to go with that change, if that makes sense. I know I'm going through that right now, and we want to do it this way or that way because we did that before and it worked, but sometimes it doesn't work in the next season. And even now, as we're all learning in the COVID-19 situation, we have to allow ourselves to be more flexible, allow ourselves to think outside the box, allow ourselves to say, God, what next? And allow ourselves to grow and expand and maybe do things differently without the guilt, without thinking this is not the norm, this shouldn't be working because I've never done this before. So I want to focus on just for a moment that word flexibility. It takes us a long way when you've been in ministry for a long time. And what it does do is it makes us really have to go and ask God, what do I do now? How do I do this differently? Still the same message. How do I do it differently?
Mm-hmm. Right. That's where your vision for the purpose can change throughout the different seasons in how you're doing it. But it's maintaining that flexibility within it to be able to accommodate the growth of your why. Because it's absolutely true. I mean, any of us in our 20s and 30s acted differently. We talk differently, we look differently. And then as we grow, we understand that the more we know, the less we actually know. But if we were 19, 20 and somebody asked us if we know everything, we think we know everything. I talk to so many people that before they reach 25, they think they are pros at all of it. And, you know, most of you here, they know I can see most of you are older than me and a few of you are younger than me, but I'm in my 40s and I still feel like I'm 21 in the sense that I have the same amount of energy, thank God, but my mind is on a different level and I can't just act the way I did when I was 21. So yes, our why definitely matures and becomes more defined because, like we said earlier, we must learn how to define ourselves so that other people don't define us. And it's very easy for other people to even define your why if you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's a dangerous thing, to allow somebody else to define your why. So, if anybody else has anything to contribute to the conversation, we're going to move on to the next slide. Anybody else? I'm watching two screens, so that's why
I
sometimes
want to ask her about the
looking up.
slides now that you have her.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
guess so.
Okay. All right, so let's go on to the next slide, Jen. And this is kind of like a combination slide here, communicating our message. We already said to look your best, to talk in a way that attracts people, and then publications, digital publications, and presentations. So I brought some things just to show you, and I also have in the PowerPoint, I'll show you some of them in the digital format, but I have done this brochure when we were celebrating our 20-year anniversary, and it's just like one big publication that I send out to everybody, just showing them what we have done for 20 years. So that's one way to communicate your vision to the partners. Another way for me has been these cards. So this card is designed specifically for partners when we're supporting children. And this part here is empty because that's where I glue a picture of the kid. So when I'm raising funds for a child and I need a child sponsorship, I put these cards with the picture of the person, and then we create packets that go together with it. And then that's how I present our vision, and then people can adopt or support a child for $30 a month from our programs. I've also done some different kinds of brochures, and I know that my light, I'm gonna just take it down for a second. So this is a brochure that I have done for clean water. We raise money for clean water project for Uganda and build a couple of wells where we have our organization do ministry with the kids. And I've done bookmarks, and I have listed on your general information, the compilation there, locations where you can print things for really inexpensive, and also Babette and her organization. They do printing and publishing and design. So giving you a little plug, feel free to put in your website there as well on our chat so that people can also utilize it. But all of this presentation is really important for people to trust you, because if it doesn't look good, most likely they're going to think that you don't have a clue what you're doing. And nowadays, it's not an excuse for things not to look good. I'll show you one newsletter of how I started, and this is hilarious. It shows that by the goodness of God, I have made it this far. Okay, this is one of the very first newsletters that I was sending out on a green paper or a pink paper or a blue paper, black and white, because I had no money for anything else. And then it was like folded like this with a donation envelope inside. I mean, looking at it now, it looks pretty pitiful, but hey, it did the job for back in the day. This is, oh my goodness, this is a long time ago. 3 years after I started the nonprofit, 97. And then I have done huge brochures like this as well, that I would send to people to do home fundraisers, where you would have all of the information about the home fundraising. And then inside, I had included recipes from Bulgaria. So if somebody was hosting a home fundraising event for our organization, they could cook something yummy, read the information from the brochures, give it out to everybody else, and I would send them a DVD with it that they would play at their home and gather people to raise funds for us. We did about 100 home dinners through some of the publications that I mailed to partners. And they were very excited and joyful. They didn't have to do all the work. I did it for them. And there they were, presenting it like pros. So those are just some things. Here is a little business card that I have. So I'm just giving you some examples. Tomorrow we're going to look at it on the screen, but I just pulled these out from my file. I'm gonna bring my light back so that I am bright. And that's just different ways that you can express your vision, mission, all of that with your partners through your publications. Then for tomorrow, we have this slide. This is 24. If you forget what to do and what our little homework is, write your why, and then in short paragraph or just a few words, your vision and your mission. So that's your slide for tomorrow to just kind of have an idea of what to do. Then on slide 25, we're going to look at 6 ineffective ways of communication. Number 1 is being ashamed of fundraising. And if you're ashamed of fundraising, you will never ask anybody for money. You're going to be giving them information, and that's not going to do anything for you. Talking to yourself rather than your donors, just like I said earlier, there is a lot of unprocessed information out there that people throw into videos and newsletters and such. And when you're just talking about yourself and talking to yourself, just for you to be encouraged, and you're not reaching the donors, they will probably not follow you. Making decisions on instinct, not facts, basically means that when you're stressed and all of a sudden it feels like the whole world is crashing on you, that is not the time to be making a major decision or change. You gotta be observant, you gotta look at what's happening and look at the facts. Where is your organization? But don't just jump into an instinctive decision to shut things down or all of a sudden to expand everything on an emotional basis just because you feel some impulse. I have learned over the years to sleep on it, right? You get an idea, it may sound like it's so amazing the night before, and instead of jumping into it that same night, sleep on it. Wake up in the morning, see how you feel about it. Start researching about it. Give it a few days. See if you really want to do this. There is a joke where a person decided to go and be a farmer, and basically the the advice was given: before you buy the farm, go and milk a cow and see if you like it, and if you don't, then don't buy the farm. The same thing is here with ministry. If we're going to be in full-time ministry, you know, do something for another ministry first. Maybe if you don't have your own, see how you like it, because maybe not everybody is called to be a CEO of a nonprofit organization. Some of us can be full-time ministers and be a part of another organization. That doesn't make you less of a minister, less with a vision, less with a purpose. And that's really the main aspect here, is that once you define yourself and know who you are, you don't have to be ashamed of what you do and how you're doing it. Basing decisions on fear: oh my goodness, we don't have enough money, I better start doing all of these new things. Or being addicted to change. People change a lot of things overnight, simultaneously. I'm just going to change everything. Okay, well, we don't want to be addicted to change or allergic to change. Those are two extremes. So I put them there. Everybody here, I believe, understands what that really means. Then on the next part, the art of networking, next slide, in establishing a team that will promote you. We have about 20 minutes, and I would like to go through this slide and maybe two more. So I will go through the first one, relationships. So we already talked about relationships, but I can't even emphasize enough how much it means for you to value every person that God brings into your life and to understand where they fit in the big picture. Not every person is going to be your best friend, and not every person is going to be on your board of directors or a supporter, but perhaps every person has a place in your organization. And what I mean by that is, some people may just be there for a certain period of time just to cheer you on. Other people may be there for the long run. Like I said yesterday, I've sent out newsletters every month for 25 years. They've never skipped a month. It has been interesting to me that our mailing list, I obviously removed some people who've passed away. I've removed some people who didn't want to be on the mailing list anymore. I've gone through people that obviously we never heard from them, they moved. But in general, my experience has been that even if they throw my newsletter in the trash, or they put it in the junk mail or bulk mail, and they remove it out of their mind and sight when it's via email, something is triggering in their mind that even if they never supported me, I'm still here, still doing the same thing, that I made it. Because a lot of times when you first start out something and you build a relationship with these people, they're watching you. They want to see how long are you going to stick with this. And now that, for example, we've been in it for 25 years, it's a lot easier for me to do fundraising than it was when I was 3 years into the organization, because I didn't have as much credibility established. Now that we do, I can talk about all the things we have done, but you got to start from somewhere. So another way of building relationships is I always put the people I meet in my phone. I categorize them where I met them when I enter their address, and I ask them for an email and a phone number if they're willing to give it to me. If I'm sitting next to somebody on the plane and we strike up a conversation, I'm always telling them about what we're doing, why we're doing it. And I will tell you, about 98% of the time, people always give me their cards. Now, they also want my card. If I expected them to follow up with me, that will never happen. I get back off the plane and I shoot them a little email and I tell them, hey, we just met on the flight. It was great to meet you. Will you mind if I add you to the mailing list? Because I would love to stay in touch with you. And if you don't hear from me, probably it went into bulk mail, so I'll check with you next month just to make sure you're getting it. But if a person is a business person or they know something about a subject I'm interested in, I would engage them in a conversation more than just one time via email. And then I have created a lot of relationships just with strangers that I've met in random places. For example, when 9/11 happened, I was flying on one of the flights, and I was grounded in St. Louis. And then I had to fly out of St. Louis to Seattle at the time. And I sat next to a lady who was from Wenatchee, Washington. And she was so scared because we were the first flight out after 9/11 and nobody knew what to expect. So the whole time the plane is literally on pins and needles. Everybody is scared of maybe our plane is going to go down. And I always take these opportunities. If I'm sitting next to somebody, I'm going to tell them about the Lord. Well, this lady was a Christian, but she had lost her purpose. She was in her 60s at the time, didn't know what she was doing with life. And I don't know if her relationship with the Lord was even that strong. But she decided she wanted to stay in touch with me. I emailed her several times. And at that time, I was publishing one of my first books, If You Have God, You Have Everything. She was the person that sponsored the publication of my first book. She gave me all of her savings, $5,000 that I needed at the time. I never asked her. She just read our newsletter and wanted to be a part because she had lost her own purpose. And when I found out that she had given me all of her savings, I decided I'm going to call her because I felt like, oh no, what's going to happen to you if something goes wrong, you don't have any more money. So I felt like I needed to encourage her. And I said, I'm just going to pray that God is going to give you 100-fold back for the money that you gave me. And she didn't really believe it, but I did. And 2 months later, her aunt passed away. And all of the inheritance from the aunt went to her. And it was 10 times more than the $5,000 that she had given me. Oh my goodness, I am telling you, this woman's life was transformed from that day on. She became one of our biggest supporters. She went on several mission trips to Ghana, learned how to be a photographer so she can create different photo albums and pictures for us. And she was already in her late 60s at that time. Now she's in her late 70s. She has done a lot of things for me, including connecting me with churches in the area. A woman who, in general, didn't look like had anything to offer. But I just decided I'm going to be her friend and I'm going to help her rise up to the occasion. The same thing was in relationships with, sometimes there was a saying that you're 3 people away from everybody you need to know around the world. And it's usually true. But in this particular instance, 2 years ago, I was praying that I would have somebody that can go and do some video photography for us and create videos. And the Lord placed a lady in my life whose grandfather actually had come to Bulgaria, gave the gospel to us, and I got saved under his ministry, and this was his granddaughter. And she called me, never met her, and she said, I really feel like I need to go to Bulgaria and see where my grandpa ministered, and I want to work with the organization. This was last year that she decided to do that. And one of my best friends wants to come with me. She's a videographer, and she really wants to offer her services to do video and photography and create videos for you. These 2 girls spent 3 months in Bulgaria, video recording everything, every day with all of our kids. And now we have several videos that they have done, stories that they came and brought back. So relationships, we need to distinguish which ones are important so that we invest time in those people, and which ones are just going to be people that need us for encouragement. And then out of that, we move forward in building our ministry and organization. So board of directors. I know that some of you here don't have and don't run a nonprofit organization, but those of us who do, one of the requirements in order to be licensed and have an actual nonprofit that is tax exempt with the IRS in America is you have to have board of directors. I usually have learned this from Bishop and Pastor Shai, is that the smaller the board and the most important people on the board, the better it is, rather than just adding a lot of people who may be big donors, but then they want to control your organization. And I have had that in the past where people with money would come and they would want to be on my board of directors. but their stipulation was that they wanted me to do everything that they wanted to do. And I've told them, I can't do that. If you want to do whatever you want to do, start your own nonprofit. But if you want me to run my nonprofit, then I can't have you come here and run it for me and tell me where I need to be investing all of our finances. So I have said no to people that wanted to be on the board, and that's okay. You got to learn how to establish boundaries and how to say no. I only have 4 members, and I am the 5th one. I have a different director. I'm not the director. So basically, I have a president, a vice president, a treasurer, and a secretary. And that's about it. And then I am the person running the organization. So I do function as a role of director, CEO. But we have meetings twice a year, and we've only had 1 in-person meeting. The rest of all have been done via Zoom calls and over the phone calls. So the board of directors, you want to create, you can even do 3 people if you don't have 4, but you need to have people who are trustworthy, who believe in you, and who are not going to run your organization. All of my board of directors are people who actually have their own nonprofits. So I know that they're not going to want mine. And we have great talks. They're very supportive. And this way we're not engaged in a lot of battles over things, but I can present to them and be accountable. Recognition. This is important to recognize your partners and supporters. We're going to look at a couple of slides down on how that is done. And then learning how to listen to the emotions of the people around you, including your board, including the people that are on staff, people who are volunteers, and to reward them accordingly. Meaning, for the staff that we have in Bulgaria, those that are on the front lines running the show, so to say, every day out there with the kids, I reward them differently than somebody who is here in America just doing computer work, because it's just a different involvement. We give them Christmas. They don't have a lot as it is in Bulgaria, so I have purposed to raise enough money that every Christmas I bless the whole family, that our organization blesses their whole family with Christmas presents, extra food, so that they feel appreciated. I've also have instructed our team there to do dinners at least once a month for the volunteers that are coming and working with them. Right now, we're not doing that for obvious reasons because of the virus, but in general, we have appreciation dinners. I meet with people one-on-one when I can, and when I'm in different states traveling, just to appreciate them, to hear them, and to tell them thank you for being a part. So when we look at relationships, don't put yourself above everybody else just because you're a minister. That has been a form that has, from the past, done a lot of damage to ministers, to pastors, and to churches, where you have a pastor that feels like because they're called by God, now they deserve everything else in the congregation and nobody else deserves it. And that really, for one, it's not a servitude, it's not servanthood, and it's not something that the Lord will appreciate of us if we are constantly acting as though we know it all and everybody needs to serve us. And I really appreciate that about when I met Bishop and Pastor Shai and the rest of the women, but especially Bishop, because she was my first person that I met, that she wasn't acting like the boss of everybody around. She was the servant of all of us. And Pastor Shai is the exact same way. And so I just want to, thank you publicly for that, because you have paved the way for all of us to have that example in you. And if I have to be honest, if I had stuck with another organization or been in a part of other organizations that have a hierarchical type of a leadership structure, I probably wouldn't have had that growth as I was younger in a way that helped me not to become what I shouldn't have been, but to be who I am now. And I'm just grateful for that. I hope that came out right. But thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm sure that all of us that know you can testify the same thing. So the next slide here, 27, establishing and maintaining relationships. Relationship based on money is bondage. Don't ever become a friend with somebody because you think that you're going to use them for money one day. I mean, it's one thing to establish a relationship as a business partnership or something, but to go around looking at everybody as though they're money and they're walking around with their wallets ready to give to you, that is going to keep you in a lot of bondage, and people will find out you're not sincere. The friendship factor from Dr. Allen says, if we build more windows and fewer walls, we will have more friends. I allow a lot of people to come into my life, and Dr. TL has said our life is more enriched by the people we allow to be in it, or our life is as big as the people that we allow to be in it. And every person has a place. So that's one thing to remember. Learning people's names. I had a hard time with that. For one, being from another country in the beginning, I couldn't pronounce half of the people's names. Our names have a different way of sound and understanding in Bulgaria. So I had to become really purposeful when I learn a person's name to repeat it 3 times to 5 times right away in my mind. Otherwise, it's gone. Also, when I put their contact information, I put where I met them, on what day I met them, and what we were talking about. So I have a reference in my contact when I'm meeting new people. And then establishing a mailing list. This is really important. If you're new in having a new nonprofit organization and wanting to grow a mailing list, where are you storing these contacts? We're going to talk about that in the morning. But I'm just throwing it out there, that if you don't have a database, you need to start one. And the easiest way to start one is through Excel spreadsheet. You don't have to be a pro. You just open Excel spreadsheet and put name, address, phone number, email, and then start keeping track if they have given any money. I did that for the first several years. I would say probably the first 3 years or 4 years of my nonprofit, when I had nobody to program a database for me. But now I use Salesforce, and prior to that I had a different database that was designed from another friend of ours. But all that to say, mailing list is important to be stored somewhere online and in cloud, so that you don't lose all of your contacts if your computer crashes. Otherwise, your ministry is gone with your computer. So always have something in the cloud, like we say now. And then be the first one to contact the people that you meet. Be the first one to respond to text messages, to phone calls. Don't wait several weeks into it to respond to a text message. That's one thing I had to teach our team. I don't know why, but in our time and generation, especially dealing with younger people, there is no urgency to respond to any email or return a call or return a text. And I had to create clear expectations that if you're going to be working with me, we need to be on the same page and respond to emails and text messages at all times, preferably within 24 hours to 48 hours. And then we do the same with partners that connect with us. We send off an email right away. It's programmed into our database to just say welcome. I'll show you in the morning some of my automated responses. So we're gonna stop here because it's already 9 o'clock. Tomorrow we're gonna start off with modern donor and with a little group discussion. And we have tomorrow a lot of the practical aspects to cover of all of the knowledge that we just shared in the last 2 nights. So as we're closing, just to take 5 minutes. We're going to pray at the end. But anybody has any more questions, comments before the dismiss?
I have one comment, my dear sister.
Yes.
There's been a little discussion in the chat about your slides. Some are asking for your slides. And I just want to remind everyone, several people said I didn't get them. You did get them. The first email that Sandy sent us that had the links for the fact that you're online, you got that email. The slides are attached to that. But what happened to me the first time, as I was so busy looking at the links, I didn't look at the bottom of the email to get the attachments. Sandy, does that make sense? Am I saying that right? Okay, so please, you do have the slides. And Ceitci, people are chatting, saying, I need the slides. You have the slides. There are 4 handouts in that first email that if you're not careful, you'll think it's just the links, but the slides are across the bottom.
Yeah, they're in a PDF, and yeah, they're all PDF files. And those were 3 or 4 emails that Sandy sent out.
But the one they're missing, sis, is that first one, because they saw the other emails, but they didn't pay attention on the first one because it looked like just links. So you have to really scroll down, and it's there. It's there.
Yeah. If somebody's still missing them, we can send them. We don't want them to be without the slides. So if you still can't locate them, please indicate here in the chat before we close so that Sandy can forward you the email again.
I see that figure.
Joy and Stephanie are saying we looked at all things and we still can't see them.
Okay.
Tomorrow morning, we're starting at 9 a.m. and we're going to finish at 5 or 4, depending on how fast we're going. But we're going to have 1 hour lunch break at noon. And maybe at 12:15, but it will be about noon for about 45 minutes to an hour. We'll see how quickly we're going and how much we're accomplishing with our discussions. So be promptly online at 9 or a few minutes before so that you can make sure your Zoom is working correctly. I think Jennifer is probably going to be online by 10 till or 9:15. Yes, she's shaking her head, yes. Okay. Stephanie and Joy are working on the slides. If you guys can't figure them out, let me know. I'll forward you the email myself. All right. So who would like to finish us with prayer and include also Herbert from Uganda? And we're praying for Jerusha's husband.
Amen. Amen.
Betty also doesn't see slides or the email. Okay, anybody who would like to pray?
I love to pray.
I love to pray.
Awesome. Thank you, Bishop.
I know everybody's just waiting to be respectful and polite, but you know, after a while, you just have to say, I love to pray.
That's right.
Heavenly Father, we thank you that we've been able to gather this evening to be focused on how to do what you've put in our hearts to do with effectiveness, with purpose, with great results. I thank you, Father, for the hearts of these women that present themselves to learn. Thank you for your Holy Spirit that reminds us of the things that we hear, brings them to our remembrance the right time. Thank you that you increase our capacity to know, to understand, to apply all things that are effective for the growth of your kingdom and for the victory in people's lives. Father, as we close tonight, give us a good night's rest, clear our minds, help us as we compose the mission, vision statements. Help us to take this as a time with you and listen to your Holy Spirit and compose things that you put in our heart that help us going forward. And Father, we join our hearts on behalf of Jerusa's husband. Thank you that you watch over him in Uganda. They have endured a long time of separation and many challenges. But thank you that you have been aware in every situation, and your faithfulness is unchanging. So we join together in faith, ask you to protect them.
Right.
May they be reunited safely, and may you not allow any scheme of the enemy to continue destruction in their lives or hindering what they are called to do. In the name of Jesus, we claim victory and great joy. In the name of Jesus, our Yeshua. Amen.